Yeah, let's get started. It's 7:35. So I'm Ray, and I'm part of the Sungrove Golf Club. I'm one of the board of directors, and actually, I'm the one that started the golf club. I guess it was 2003 we started. So I've been the handicap chairman for the last 17 years, I guess. So I think I mentioned in the email what we were going to talk about. So we're going to talk about how to figure out what the maximum Well, let's see what the maximum score you can have for posting your scores for handicap purposes. Obviously, if you shoot 125 or 130, that's what you're going to shoot. But there could be times where the 120 may be 115 because based on how you performed on every hole, you have a maximum score for every hole. So, and that's basically to do one thing. It's basically, and talks about what net double bogey is. It says a maximum player's hole score for handicap purposes, ensuring bad holes don't impact the player's handicap too severely. So I can give you an example of, let's say somebody's a one handicap and they take a 13 on a hole. And instead of normally they may post 75 or 74, but now they're posting 85 because they took a 10 on a hole. Well, that's going to impact that person's handicap too severely. And so they don't want to do that. Because when you look at the handicap system is based on your, not on your average, but your, see, what is the word? Your ability, basically. So let's talk a little bit about what the net double bogey is. And I think I sent out a scorecard for you guys to look at, and we'll go over that at the end. And you can kind of do your own calculation and see what you come up with. So I'm going to go through a few slides. Some of these slides I went through when we had our end of year meeting last year. So the next one is, let's see if it goes to the next slide. Okay, so this is basically the calculation, the maximum score for handicap purposes. And basically what it is net double bogey is equal to par plus 2 plus whatever strokes you're given on a hole. So I'll give you an example. Let's say on a par 5, it's par 5 plus 2 would be double bogey and then whatever strokes you get. So in the example here, it's par is 4 plus 2 strokes double bogey plus 1 stroke you receive. So the maximum you can have on that is a 7 on that hole. So how that works is the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what your course handicap is for any hole. But you can do that. Oops, sorry, I went through that. Does everybody know how to figure out what your course handicap is? Do you guys understand that? I'm going to see if I can. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can use your phone, and you can use the NCGA app. So I'm going to try to show you on my phone. I think you can also go to the NCGA website, but let me give you an example. Did most of you guys use the NCGA app?
Yes.
You're right. I know Alan knows how to do it. Terry knows how to do it. So there's a button called Handicap Calculator. And what'll happen is you can search for courses. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well, probably not. You can search for courses and you can select a course. And I can say, let's say Bing Maloney. I can take, okay, so Bing Maloney pops up. And what's important is you put in the tees that you're playing from, because the tees make a big difference. So I say I play from the white tees, and basically it says what my course handicap is 9. Let's see, wait for it to show up. So my course handicap for Bing Maloney is 9. So what I would do is I would take my scorecard and just, you could draw a dot for the top 9 holes on your scorecard that are the hardest. And the stroke allocations are from 1 to 18. Oops. So I don't know what happened to the, anyway, so let's go through this right now. I'll give you an example. So here's, I don't know what the red stuff is on my, Oh, Robert. Okay, somebody waiting in the waiting room. Okay, so here we go. We have a player. Her name is Janet Smith, and her course handicap is 18. So if you look at her score, she posted, her score for the round was 95. Now she's going to go back and look at her scorecard, and she's going to see that, oh, on the 17th hole is a par 4. I had an 8. Now the SI means stroke allocation, so you'll see it on your scorecard. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but the stroke allocations will show you, 1 through 18. So in this case, this is number 6. So if she's an 18 handicap, she's going to get a pop or a stroke for every hole. So if you look at the net double bogey calculator, you take par, plus you add 2 is 6, and then she would have got a stroke on there. So the most she can post for that hole is a 7. Now, if you look at her scorecard, she posted an 8. So basically, she needs to make an adjustment of -1 for that. Does that make sense? So the most she can post for scoring purposes would be a 94 and not a 95. Now your scorecards will probably look different, but that's basically how you make the adjustment. And what I do is you don't have to worry about anything if you don't have anything higher than a double bogey. Okay, so the first thing you do is you look at your scorecard and you look for anything that's a triple bogey or above. If you don't find anything that's a triple bogey, then you don't need to do anything. You can just post your score and be done with it. Some people like Alan, he doesn't have any double bogeys or nothing, so he just posts his score. I'm joking, everybody has them. I had a 10.
Thank you.
I had a 10 for the first time in probably 2 or 3 years when we played a course in Nevada about 2 weeks ago. So it was ugly, and I had to adjust that to a 7 or 8. I can't remember. It wasn't good though. So that's the application of net double bogey. Let's see what the next slide is here. Okay, so it says score for competition is 95, and then its score for handicap purposes is 94. So one thing I want to mention about tournament scores, you don't have to worry about it because the computer will automatically post the correct score for handicap purposes. So you may have shot a 98, but when you look at your scoring record, it may show like a 95 because the computer had went in there and figured out what your maximum score for each hole is and made the calculations. So anytime you play a tournament, you don't have to worry about that. But when you're posting scores, when you're playing with your buddies, then you need to do that.
Yeah, and Ray, just to mention, in the tournament, you're going to have the 98. The 98 will count as your score, but for posting purposes, a 95 will post, like you said, or the adjusted score.
Right. So your score for your competition, you're right, will be 98, but you may have a 94 or 95 for posting. So so that's kind of how that works. What else? I was going to mention something else. Oh,
post on the same day you play.
Yeah, you want to post on the same day you play, and the reason why you do that is because the playing condition calculation kicks in, and your score is used for a calculation, and it may change the difficulty of the course based on how many people have posted and what their scores are. One thing I want to mention also, and somebody had mentioned to me in an email, Wayne Petty, he mentioned to me that if you post hole-by-hole scores in the NCGA app, then it'll automatically adjust for your adjusted score. You don't have to figure anything out. You just put every hole by hole in there and it will do that. But not all courses you can post hole by hole. So Terry, do you post hole by hole?
Typically I post hole by hole. But every now and then, if I'm in a hurry, I'll either post front 9, back 9, or just aggregate 18.
Okay. So anyway, so that's the other option if you don't want to do any math. You just want to like post hole by hole and it's an option, then you can do that. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is kind of important because a lot of you guys are playing match play And we had found in a couple instances that people were not posting their match play scores. So what's important is if you're playing match play and somebody gives you a gimme putt, let's say you have a 2-footer and they know you're going to make it, then what happens is that score still needs to be posted for handicap purposes. And basically, these are some guidelines. So it says the position of the ball, if you're on the putting green within 5 feet of the hole, and the guy says, yeah, I'll give you that, then you add a stroke. So if you're putting for bogey and you have a 5-footer and he says, I'll give you that, and then you take your bogey. If you're between 5 and 20 feet, you may add 2 to 3 strokes based on how good of a putter you are. And I don't know what your ability is, but most of the time, I don't see anybody giving anybody anything more than 5 feet. It's pretty, I don't know, once in a while, but not very often. So this is just some data for you to consider when you're playing match play or you're playing some holes and you're not holing out the putt. Just remember though, you need to post those match play scores. Does that make sense?
Well, that should be feet right there, not yards, right?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question.
Depends who you're playing
Yeah, I guess it depends where you play.
and who you're playing. But the bottom line, though, Ray, is post what you think you would have gotten on that hole.
Yeah, and it's basically over 50% of the time. If you think you can make a putt that's 4 feet over 50% of the time, then just add 1 stroke if you're not going to putt it out. If you got a 50-footer and you're not going to hole that, and you think I can normally do a 2-putt within that, then do that. So Alan's right. So just post the score that you would normally have more than 50% of the time.
Say someone is playing and they like got an injury and couldn't finish, and they had like maybe 5 holes left. What happens then?
Okay, so let's talk about that. I think it's coming up in my slide. Okay, so here's one. It says holes not played. When a player does not play a hole, the score recorded for handicap purposes is net par. So remember when we looked at that scorecard of somebody that had a handicap of 18, they would get a pop for every hole. So if they played 13 holes and they got injured and they couldn't finish, what they would do is they would count par plus whatever pops they got or strokes. So in case of an 18 handicap player, they would take par plus a stroke for every hole. So basically they would take a bogey for every hole because you would take net par, plus whatever strokes. And I think there's a slide coming up about that.
So what that means, Ray, what that means then is the higher handicappers, if they're getting more than 18 strokes, they may add 2 strokes
Exactly.
on top of par. So it's wherever the strokes fall on the scorecard.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to put your dots on your scorecards. If you're a high handicapper and you have a lot of dots to put on there, then it's probably easier just to stick them on there. Then it's a lot easier to add later. This just talks about acceptability of golf scores. Okay, so I think most people know about the unacceptable scores. And that's basically when you're playing scrambles, when you're playing foursomes, also known as alternate shot. And that's the case when we played our Wild Hog tournament. We didn't post those scores because you're not playing your own ball the whole time. And then this is something that I wasn't really aware of, but when being coached, if somebody's coaching you, then you can't consider that score acceptable because somebody's helping you.
That's a good point, Ray. So we have a lot of 2-man tournaments.
Right.
And yeah, the Wild Hawk one didn't count because you weren't playing your own ball the whole way, but we do have the 4-ball matches and the 4-man matches, which is best ball basically.
Yeah.
So you have to do the same thing. You're playing your ball. So if you're out of a hole and you pick up, you can either put an X, which will be adjusted for that, the net double bogey, excuse me.
Yeah.
or you can put the score on the card, the net double bogey score. But you have to keep track of that score because it will be posted, even though it's a two-man best ball.
Right. That's correct. So yeah, when we do that two-man tournaments, we do a couple of them a year. Those scores are posted. So this slide talks about fewer than 9 holes played. You must have played at least 7 holes to post a 9-hole score. Yeah.
Hey, Ray or Alan,
Hey.
would it still apply, Alan, like when you're talking about a two-man, or a two-man would be a 4-man event? But if your partner's coaching you on, the ball's breaking this way, because you're in a two-man event, then that wouldn't apply for coaching?
Only to you, Yancey. No,
Yeah, if you think it helped you unfairly, but
I don't know if
sometimes,
that.
If you're getting advice from your partner, it's usually bad advice, right?
Yeah.
I don't think getting advice from your partner is the same as getting a real coach.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. When they say coaching, they mean like a pro. When you go
Yeah.
out on a playing lesson, that would not count as a score.
Yeah, like if you.
Right, I got you. If they played 6 holes or something with you.
Right. Which they
All
do.
right.
Pros do that a lot.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you got Tiger Woods as your coach and he's coming out coaching you, then I wouldn't expect you to post a score that day, Yancey.
It wouldn't
So,
help
yeah.
you get.
That's a good point, though, Ray, for our club,
Yeah.
because we're a fun club and we know that our partners aren't pros and they barely know how to play themselves. So if they give advice, it may not be good advice, but we wouldn't count that as coaching.
Yeah, I
Right.
just wanted clarification. Not
Sure.
a problem.
No, that's a good question.
Yep. Good question. Okay. So Alan touched on this a little bit. It says time frame for submitting a score. A player should submit their score as soon as possible on the day of play and preferably before midnight local time. If a player does not submit their score on the day of play, their score will not be included within the daily playing conditions calculation. When the score is subsequently posted to the player's scoring record, the published playing condition calculation of the day should be applied to the player's score differential calculation. So basically what this means is if you post it during that day, then it's part of the playing conditions calculation. If you don't post it the day you played, then your score can still be changed based on the playing conditions calculation, but your score isn't part of the calculation. So what I mean is, let me give you an example. Let's say I played Bing Maloney, and let's say 50 people played Bing Maloney, and it's dry and your ball's rolling 20 yards more than it normally does because let's say they forgot to water the course and it's rock hard, and normally my drive maybe 210 yards or 215 and it's rolling out 230 or 240 now. So basically what that means is I posted a pretty good score that day because I had favorable conditions and a lot of other people had good scores that day. So if the course itself plays easier than it normally would, then what they do is they realize that, yeah, it does play easier than it normally would, and we're going to kind of change your differential based on that. So they may change it by 1 or 2 based on how everybody played. And that could go plus or it can go minus. It could be the backwards way too, where it was raining one day and it was really bad and everybody was shooting, 5 over their handicap or whatever. So that's what the playing conditions calculations used for. And this just talks a little bit about the minimum scores are the differences for the world handicap system now. You only need 3 scores to get a handicap now. The number of differentials used, it's 8 now instead of 10. They implemented the playing conditions calculation. Another thing is an exceptional score reduction that considers all scores. That's when you play really good in a tournament, you can have your handicap modified. And then there's a hard cap and a soft cap. I'm not going to go into all that, but I only want to go over a couple more slides basically. And one thing that I wanted to talk about was how your differentials are used to establish a handicap. So now what happens is you only need 3 scores to establish a handicap. Now, most of us, have 20 or 30 or 40 or, we're playing all the time. So it doesn't affect us much, but it will affect a new player that signs up for our club. So in this case, to give you an example, let's say you have 3 scores. Well, what it's going to do is it's going to use your lowest differential, and then it's going to adjust that by 2. It realizes that it really doesn't know what your handicap is, but it's going to lean on your potential as your lowest score and then take 2 off of that. So anyway, that's what your handicap would be if you just had 3. And then once you start getting more scores like 5 or 10, then it's taking more of your scores and it's taking the average of some of your lowest scores. It always uses the lowest scores for the average because it wants to know what your potential is. It's not what your average score is, but you have the potential to shoot a particular score. And this is just a calculation for your score differential. It's 113 divided by slope times their adjusted score minus the course rating. And then if there's a plain condition calculation, then it's adjusted there. You'll see if you use the NCGA app, thing I don't want to mention about that. If you use the app, see, mine doesn't have any.
Ray, are those slides available for us to grab off of the NCGA to look at?
These came from these came from the ones that I took from the NCGA when I went to the World Handicap System seminar, but I can send them to you guys. It's no problem. I can send them to you guys.
I was just thinking of a reference point to be able to go back and look at them.
Yeah, no problem. Calculation of a score differential. This is what it means is it's not always about your lowest score. So you can see that there's a 95 here, but the 97 has a lower differential because you played a harder course. So the differential is, for the 97 is actually the lowest. And this is just the stuff for the handicap calculation we talked about. It's your average of the best 8 of your last 20. But I wanted to go over real quick, and I sent an email to everybody basically to show them a scorecard, and I wanted to go over that a little bit so we can just have a little bit of an exercise on how to do this. So let's say we have a guy named Jason, and he's got an 8 handicap. So what I did is I went ahead and put a dot indicating his strokes that he gets on the 8, the hardest or the lowest stroke index holes. So if you look at the first hole, that's a men's handicap of 2. So if he's an 8, he's going to get a stroke there. Second hole, par 4, it's handicap 6 for men, so he's going to get a stroke there. And you kind of just go through the whole thing. I think most of you guys know where your strokes fall. But anyway, so I put all these on there, and then I did the same thing for Jenny. And then, so what you want to do is the first thing you do is after you finish your round, look at your scorecard and look for any scores that are triple bogey or higher. So if I start looking through here, Jason had a triple bogey on this hole. So what you do is, so if you look at the formula, it's net double bogey. So this was a par 3. So it's 3 plus a double bogey is 2 is 5. And he doesn't get any strokes on this hole. So 5 would be the max he could post on this hole. And you can see that he posted a 6. So he would lose 1 there. So this 6 needs to be adjusted to a 5 for posting purposes. And then we keep going through it. You got a double bogey, a double bogey. Okay, everything looks good. Got a 6 on it. Okay. Got a double bogey. Okay, he had a triple. So let's look at this. So a triple on number 18. So it's par 4. So it's 4 plus 2 is 6. But then he got a stroke. So you have to add the stroke. So 4 plus 2 plus 1 is 7. The most he can post on that hole is a 7. Well, he had a 7, so there's no adjustment. So basically, his adjusted score would be 86. He would take one off. So, so Jenny, let's look at Jenny. So first thing we want to do is look for triple bogeys or higher. She's a higher handicap, so she may have a few in here. So here's a double bogey, bogey, double, couple pars, bogey, bogey, bogey. Here's a triple bogey. Okay, so here's a triple bogey. Let's use our net double bogey method. So we take 5 plus 2 is 7 double bogey, and then she gets 2 strokes. So 7 plus 2 is 9. The most she can post on a hole is 9. Well, she had an 8, so that's okay. We'll keep going through here. Okay, 8 on a par 3. Okay, that's a pretty big number. So par 3 is 3. Double bogey's 2, that's 5, and she gets a stroke, that's 6. So the most she could post on this would be a 6. So she posted an 8, so she'd have to adjust that by 2. So adjust that by 2, you come through here. Okay, that's it. So basically, she would take 2 off her 95, and she would post 93 for her adjusted score. So that's pretty much it. So that's how you do net double bogey for handicap purposes. Does it make sense to you guys?
It does.
Thanks for setting it up, Ray.
Yeah, and I guess I'm recording this. I didn't realize this. So I don't know how to. I'll send out. I could probably send out the recording. I don't know. I don't know how big the file is, but let me stop sharing. Let's see if this. I don't know how to stop video. I don't know if that's my video.
That's probably why it wouldn't let, because Matt couldn't get on.
Matt couldn't get on?
No, because I tried to get on my laptop also, and it said I had to wait for you to approve it, probably because
Oh.
you're recording it.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. Well, okay. So I have to figure out. I've never really recorded. When I saw the start video, I thought that was the camera button to turn on the camera. I didn't realize it. So anyway, any other questions before we go? You guys have any questions?
Great examples.
Yeah, I'm good. I actually learned a lot here.
Okay.
Yeah, good job, Ray.
All right. Well, I'm glad you guys learned something.
Yeah, thanks, Ray.
Now we'll have more accurate handicaps for our club. So
We should set up another one, Ray.
I will, and I'll see if I can send this out. I'll have to figure it out, but yeah.
That way almost every member should go through it as like a training course.
Yeah. Well, if you're the handicap chairman, you got to go through all this stuff. Terry knows. He's got training in handicap stuff too. He's the. I don't know if you guys know this. You're the president at Emerald Lakes.
Yeah, I'm the president.
Yeah. Do you guys have a handicap? Do you guys have a handicap chairman?
Club ambassador.
Okay.
That course pisses me off, Terry.
Not an easy course.
Yeah, I've seen you play, and I think, doesn't every course piss you off?
No, because the 18s, I'm drunk on the last 9, so it doesn't affect me.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I would have saw your card on fire though at the one time.
Yeah, that was a sight.
All right,
Did
guys,
you see it?
it's time to go.
Did you see it?
I saw it.
It's
Yeah, you
time
could
to
see it
hang
from
up.
the first. You
Is the
saw it
meeting
from the
over?
first hole, right? And it was on the second hole. He was on
No,
the.
I was on
He
the
was on the,
second
he was on the
hole.
second green, and I was in
Okay.
the fairway.
Okay. Anyway, how did that
It was
happen,
fun.
Yancey? Tell the folks that are online. It's a good story. Make it quick
It's
though.
the Bartley tournament in January, so it was cold. So I have my propane heater that goes on my cart. I accidentally set it a little too high, and it melted the rubber that holds the tees on the top of my cart, and the rubber dripped into the filament for the propane heater, and it caught it on fire. So I had about a 3-foot flame that you could see really clear from the second tee box.
Dang.
So it was interesting. But Jim Maker got his buddy drunk, and that one topped me. So
Oh, yeah.
Tournament too.
He got
Same
threw
tournament.
up in the 18th hole, right?
that's right. So that one trumped me.
All right, guys.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
you.
Ray.
All right.
All right.
I'll see if I can send this out. Have a good
All
one,
right.
guys.
Thanks.
All right,
Okay.
bye.
Bye.
Okay.